The silent Pleiad stars had been whispering secrets for billions of years. But on a cold Tuesday morning in 2157, they finally spoke in a language that humanity could understand. Communications officer Elena Vasquez sat in the observation deck of Deep Space Monitoring Station Omega-7, watching the endless dance of distant suns through the reinforced viewport. The station floated in the empty space between Earth and Mars, its massive antenna arrays constantly scanning the cosmos for any sign that humanity was not alone in the universe. Elena had been doing this job for 8 years, and most days brought nothing but cosmic background radiation and the occasional burst from dying stars. She was used to the quiet hum of the monitoring equipment and the soft blue glow of the computer screens that surrounded her workstation. But today was different. Today, the universe had something urgent to say. The first sign came as a barely perceptible pattern in the radio waves from the direction of the Kepler 442 system, over 127 light-years away. Elena almost missed it entirely, but her trained eye caught the subtle regularity in what should have been random static. She leaned forward in her chair, her dark eyes narrowing as she studied the wave patterns on her main display. The signal was incredibly weak, having traveled across the galaxy for more than a century before reaching human space. Computer, enhance signal strength and run pattern analysis, Elena commanded, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The artificial intelligence system immediately began processing the data, amplifying the faint transmission and searching for any recognizable patterns or structures. What appeared on her screen made Elena's heart skip a beat. The signal wasn't random at all. It was clearly artificial, showing mathematical progressions and repeating sequences that could only have been created by an intelligent mind. She had found it. After decades of searching, humanity had finally detected a message from another species. Elena immediately activated the emergency communication protocol, sending an alert to Dr. James Chun, the station's chief xenolinguistics expert. Within minutes, Dr. Chun materialized as a hologram in Elena's workspace, his usually calm demeanor replaced by barely contained excitement. He was a tall, thin man with graying hair and eyes that seemed to sparkle with constant curiosity. "Elena, tell me you're not mistaken about this," Dr. Chun said, his voice tight with anticipation. "Tell me this is really what I think it is." "I've run every test I can think of," Elena replied, transferring the data to Dr. Chun's systems. "The signal shows clear signs of intelligent origin. It's been broadcasting for approximately 127 years, which means it originated around 2030 by our calendar. Whatever species sent this has been calling out to the galaxy for more than a century." Dr. Chun's hologram flickered slightly as he accessed the station's most powerful translation algorithms. His specialty was developing communication protocols for potential alien contact, though until this moment, his work had been purely theoretical. Now, faced with an actual alien transmission, he threw himself into the analysis with renewed vigor. Process of decoding the message took 18 grueling hours. Elena remained at her station throughout the entire process, subsisting on coffee and determination. Dr. Chun worked tirelessly from his laboratory on Earth, utilizing every computational resource available to the United Earth government. Slowly, painfully, the alien language began to reveal its secrets. The breakthrough came when Dr. Chun realized that the mathematical constants embedded in the transmission weren't just for establishing intelligence. They were actually a primer for the alien language itself. The senders had cleverly designed their message to teach its recipients how to understand it, assuming that any species capable of receiving interstellar communications would also understand universal mathematical principles. As the translation progressed, individual words and concepts began to emerge from the static. Elena watched in fascination as her computer screen filled with the first alien words ever translated by humanity. The language was fluid and complex, with concepts that didn't exist in human speech, but the artificial intelligence systems gradually learned to approximate the meaning in English. Then, at 3:47 a.m. Earth Standard Time, the complete message finally appeared on Elena's screen. What she read there changed everything humanity thought it knew about its place in the universe. To any who receive this transmission, we are the Phylorians of the ocean world Aquatica, in what you may call the Kepler 442 system. Our civilization has existed for over 2 million of your Earth years, in peace and harmony with our world and each other. We are a species that values knowledge, art, and the preservation of life in all its forms. We have never known war or conquest, as our hearts have always been turned toward exploration of the depths of our world's vast oceans and the mysteries they contain. But now, darkness has come to our system. They call themselves the Ravager Collective, a fusion of machine and organic life that consumes entire worlds to fuel their expansion across the galaxy. They arrived in our system 6 months ago with a fleet of vessels larger than our cities. We tried to communicate, to find peaceful solutions, but they do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. They simply take what they want and destroy what they cannot use. Our beautiful cities beneath the waves are burning. Our people are dying in numbers that our minds cannot comprehend. We have never built weapons of war, for we never thought we would need them. Our defensive capabilities are primitive compared to the Ravager's terrible machines. We estimate that our civilization will be completely extinct within one of your Earth years if no help arrives. We do not know if anyone will hear this message. We do not know if there are other species in the galaxy who might care about the fate of strangers they have never met. But we send this plea into the void because hope is all we have left. If there is anyone out there who believes that innocent life should be protected, if there is anyone who stands against the darkness that consumes worlds, please hear our cry. We are the last free Phylorians, and we do not want to die forgotten. In the depths of space, Elena stared at the translated message for a long time, reading it over and over again. Somewhere, 127 light-years away, an entire civilization was facing extinction. An aquatic species that had never known war was being systematically destroyed by some kind of machine collective. The message was a century old, which meant the Phylorians might already be extinct, their plea having traveled across the galaxy long after their last cities had fallen. But there was also another possibility. If the Ravager Collective was as methodical as the message suggested, they might still be in the process of harvesting the planet's resources. The Phylorians might still be alive, still fighting for survival in whatever refuges they could find beneath their world's oceans. Asterisk. Dr. Chan's hologram reappeared beside Elena's workstation, his face grave with the weight of what they had discovered. Elena, we need to contact Earth immediately. This message needs to reach the United Defense Council within the hour. Humanity has a decision to make. The emergency session of the United Defense Council convened in Geneva just 12 hours after the translation was completed. Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered in the massive circular chamber, their faces illuminated by the holographic displays showing the Phylorian star system. At the center of the chamber stood Admiral Sarah Mitchell, the stern-faced commander of VI, Earth's deep space fleet and humanity's foremost expert on interstellar strategy. Admiral Mitchell was a woman who had dedicated her life to preparing humanity for the possibility of hostile alien contact. She had spent decades developing defensive strategies and building the ships that would protect Earth if the galaxy proved to be a dangerous place. Now, faced with humanity's first confirmed alien contact, she found herself advocating not for defense, but for the largest rescue mission in human history. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Mitchell began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. We stand at a crossroads that will define humanity's role in the galaxy for generations to come. The Thylorean message presents us with a clear moral choice. We can either respond to their plea for help, or we can turn away and let an entire civilization die while we remain safe in our isolated corner of space. The debate that followed was intense and emotional. Some representatives argued that humanity had no obligation to risk its own people for aliens they had never met. Others pointed out that the Ravager Collective, if it truly was consuming entire civilizations, would eventually pose a threat to Earth as well. The discussion continued for hours. With passionate arguments on both sides, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Earth's Secretary of Scientific Affairs, stood to address the Council. I've been analyzing the technological implications of the Thylorean message. The fact that they were able to send an interstellar transmission with such clarity suggests their scientific knowledge is considerable, despite their lack of military technology. If we can save them, they could become valuable allies and contribute significantly to human scientific advancement. General Chun Wei, chairman of the Asian Defense Coalition, expressed the concerns that many in the room shared. Admiral Mitchell, you're talking about sending our entire deep space fleet to a system 127 light-years away. Even with our fastest ships using the experimental quantum drives, the journey would take at least 6 months. We'd be leaving Earth defensively vulnerable, and we have no guarantee that the Thyloreans are even still alive. Admiral Mitchell nodded grimly. General Chun raises valid concerns. This would indeed be the most ambitious mission humanity has ever attempted. But I believe we must consider what kind of species we want to be. Do we want to be the kind of people who ignore cries for help simply because they come from strangers? Or do we want to be the species that stands up for what's right, regardless of the cost? The vote, when it finally came, was closer than Elena had hoped, but decisive enough to matter. By a margin of 347 votes to 298, with 67 abstentions, the United Defense Council authorized Operation Sterich, the largest military expedition in human history. The mission would be led by Captain Marcus Torres, a decorated officer known for his tactical brilliance and unwavering dedication to protecting innocent life. Captain Torres was a compact, muscular man with steel-gray hair and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. He had earned his reputation during the Mars colonial wars, where his innovative strategies had saved thousands of civilian lives. When Admiral Mitchell offered him command of the rescue mission, he accepted without hesitation. "I understand. Risks," Torres told the assembled council members. "We'll be traveling farther from Earth than any human has ever gone, into a star system controlled by a hostile alien force of unknown capabilities. We don't know what we'll find when we get there, and we don't know if we'll be able to make it home. But we know that somewhere in the darkness, innocent people are dying, and they're counting on us to help them." The preparation phase took 3 months of intensive work. Humanity's most advanced ships were retrofitted with experimental quantum drive systems that could make the journey to Kepler 442 in 6 months, instead of the centuries it would normally take. The fleet would consist of 12 heavy cruisers, 36 destroyers, and 8 support vessels carrying supplies, medical facilities, and construction equipment for whatever they might find. Elena Vasquez received permission to join the expedition as the fleet's chief communications officer. Her expertise in alien languages making her invaluable for any potential contact with surviving Thyloreans. Dr. Chun would remain on Earth, but his translation algorithms and linguistic protocols would be integrated into every ship's computer. System. As the departure date approached, Elena found herself standing once again in the observation deck of Omega 7, looking out at the stars that no longer seemed quite so distant. In just a few days, She would be traveling to one of those distant points of light, carrying humanity's answer to a plea that had crossed the galaxy. The night before departure, Elena received a personal message from Dr. Chun. "Elena," the recording said, "you're about to become the first human to make contact with an alien species. Whatever you find out there, remember that you're representing not just humanity, but the idea that civilized beings should help each other survive in a dangerous universe. Make us proud." As Elena boarded the UES Horizon, Captain Torres's flagship, she carried with her a simple message that had been approved by the Earth Defense Council. If they found surviving Thylorians, this would be humanity's first words, too. Another species. To the people of Aquatica, we are the humans of Earth. We received your message, and we have come to help. You are not alone in the darkness. We stand with you. A quantum drives engaged with a low thrumming that Elena felt in her bones. Through the viewport, she watched the familiar stars begin to shift and blur as the fleet accelerated to speeds that bent space itself around their ships. Behind them, Earth became just another point of light in the cosmic darkness. Ahead lay the unknown, and whatever remained of a civilization that had been calling for help for over a century. Asterisk, the answer that shook the galaxy's 6 months of traveling. Through the void between stars, gave Elena Vasquez plenty of time to think about what they might find at their destination. The journey itself was a marvel of human engineering, with the quantum drives folding space around the fleet and allowing them to cross distances that would normally take lifetimes. But as the weeks passed, Elena found herself wondering if they were racing toward a rescue mission or simply traveling 127 light years to witness the aftermath of genocide. The UES Horizon had become Elena's home during the long journey. She spent her days maintaining communication with the other ships in the fleet, and her nights studying the Thylorian language with ever-increasing fluency. Dr. Chan's algorithms had continued to evolve during the journey, analyzing every nuance of the original message and building a comprehensive understanding of Thylorian communication patterns. Captain Torres ran daily briefings for the senior staff, discussing potential scenarios they might encounter upon arrival. The Thylorian system could be empty, its planet stripped bare by the Ravager Collective. It could be occupied by hostile forces that would attack the human fleet on sight. Or, in the best-case scenario, they might find survivors still fighting for their lives beneath the oceans of their homeworld. Whatever we find, Torres told his officers during one particularly somber briefing, we need to be prepared for anything. The Ravagers have had over a century to complete their conquest. If there are survivors, they'll likely be few in number and desperately hiding wherever they can. The fleet's emergence from quantum space into the Kepler 442 system was both beautiful and terrifying. Elena stood on the bridge of the horizon as the familiar blur of hyperspace gave way to the stark clarity of normal space. Before them stretched a solar system that should have been pristine and alive, but instead showed the unmistakable scars of systematic destruction. The system's outer planets had been completely stripped of their atmospheres and resources, leaving behind barren rocky cores that reflected the system's red dwarf star like broken mirrors. Massive industrial structures orbited what had once been gas giants, their mechanical arms still harvesting whatever remained of the planet's shattered remains. The sight filled Elena with a cold dread that settled deep in her stomach. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park, the Horizon's tactical officer. "They really did consume entire worlds." Captain Torres stood silently for a moment, studying the devastation displayed on the bridge's main screen. "Take us toward the fourth planet," he finally ordered. "That should be Aquatica, the Thylorian homeworld. Let's see what's left." As the fleet approached the ocean world, Elena's communication systems began picking up faint signals from the planet's surface. Her heart leaped as she realized the transmissions were in Thylorian, but her excitement was tempered by the content of the messages. They were coded military communications, desperate reports about resource shortages and casualty counts. The Thylorians were still alive, but they were clearly losing their war of survival. The planet itself was a heartbreaking sight. Aquatica had once been a beautiful water world, its surface covered by vast blue oceans dotted with chains of tropical islands. Now, massive Ravager mining platforms floated above the seas like mechanical storms, their extraction beams turning the pristine waters into muddy, polluted wasteland. Elena could see the skeletal remains of what had once been underwater cities, their graceful spires now twisted metal rising above the contaminated waves. "Captain," Elena reported, her voice tight with emotion, "I'm detecting Thylorian communications from multiple underwater locations. They're still here, still fighting. They're using the deepest ocean trenches as shelters, but they're defensive. Positions are failing one by one." Torres nodded grimly. "Open a channel to the planet. Let's announce ourselves before we do anything else." Elena activated the fleet's main communication array and began transmitting on the frequencies the Thylorians were using. She spoke slowly and clearly in their language, knowing that this moment would be remembered as humanity's first words to an alien species. "People of Aquatica, this is Commander Elena Vasquez of the human fleet from the planet Earth. We received your message across the stars. We have come to help you fight the Ravagers. You are not alone anymore." The response came almost immediately, a voice speaking in rapid, excited Thylorian. Elena's translation systems worked frantically to keep up with the alien's words. "Humans, you came. We sent our message so long ago. We thought no one had heard us. My name is HFY, military commander of the last deep sanctuary. We have perhaps 10,000 survivors left from a population of 2 billion. The Ravagers will break through our final defenses within days. Please, if you truly wish to help us, we must act quickly." Elena translated HFY's words for Captain Torres and the bridge crew. The numbers were staggering. An entire civilization, reduced to 10,000 survivors hiding in the deepest parts of their world's oceans. But they were alive, and that meant there was still hope. "Tell Commander HFY that we have 56 ships and are prepared to engage the Ravager forces immediately," Torres ordered. "Ask him what he needs from us." The communication that followed was the strangest strategy session in military history. Elena found herself translating between human naval officers and an aquatic alien commander, discussing tactics for a battle that would determine the fate of 2 species. HFY explained that the Ravagers were primarily mechanical beings with organic components, making them vulnerable to certain types of electromagnetic interference. The Thylorians had been using crude electromagnetic pulse weapons, but their technology was nowhere near advanced enough to damage the heavily shielded Ravager ships. "Our weapons can disrupt their smaller drones," HFY explained through Elena's translation, "but their capital ships are too well protected. They have been systematically destroying our cities for over a century, taking their time to harvest every resource our world has to offer. We believe they are nearly finished with their extraction operations, which means they will soon begin the final extermination of our species." Captain Torres studied the tactical displays showing the Ravager positions throughout the system. The enemy had 12 massive harvest ships in orbit around Aquatica, each one the size of a small city and bristling with both industrial equipment and military weapons. Smaller drones swarmed around the planet like mechanical insects, continuing the work of stripping away everything the Thylorians had built over millions of years. Elena asked Commander HFY if his people can coordinate their attacks with ours, Torres said after several minutes of tactical analysis. "We'll need to hit the Ravagers from multiple directions simultaneously. Our ships can handle the orbital platforms, but we'll need the Thylorians to deal with the underwater installations." The battle that followed became known as the Battle of Aquatica, the first combined human-alien military operation in galactic history. Elena coordinated communications between the human fleet and the surviving Thylaurian forces, her voice serving as the link between two species fighting, side by side for the first time. The human ships attacked with a ferocity that surprised even the Ravagers. Captain Torres had learned from the Thylaurians that the enemy was used to facing species that fought with predictable, conventional tactics. Humanity brought something entirely different to the battle: unpredictability, creativity, and a willingness to take enormous risks to protect others. The UES Horizon led a direct assault on the largest Ravager harvest ship, using quantum torpedoes to punch through its shields while smaller human destroyers harassed its drone escorts. Meanwhile, the Thylaurians launched coordinated electromagnetic pulse attacks from their underwater refuges, disabling Ravager systems. Just as the human weapons struck home, Elena watched from the bridge as the first Ravager ship exploded in a brilliant fireball that lit up the planet's dark skies. The sight was both triumphant and terrible, a reminder of the destructive power that warfare brought to even the most just causes. But as more Ravager platforms fell to the combined assault, Elena could hear the joy and relief in HFY's communications. His people were witnessing their oppressors being driven away after more than a century of suffering. The battle lasted 14 hours and cost humanity 8 ships and over 3,000 lives. But when the last Ravager vessel was either destroyed or driven from the system, Aquatica was free for the first time in 127 years. The surviving Thylaurians emerged from their deep-sea shelters to find human ships orbiting their world, their crews working alongside Thylaurian engineers to begin the massive task of planetary reconstruction. Asterisk. Elena's first face-to-face meeting with Commander HFY took place in a specially constructed underwater habitat that could accommodate both species. The Thylaurian was unlike anything she had imagined, a graceful being with translucent skin that seemed to glow with its own inner light. His large, expressive eyes showed intelligence and compassion that transcended species barriers, and when he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that were hauntingly beautiful, even through the translation. Systems. Elena of the humans, HFY said in his flowing language, our people owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You traveled across the galaxy to help strangers you had never met. In our language, there is a concept that has no equivalent. In yours, Thalanara, which means the courage to do what is right, even when it costs everything. You and your people embody Thalanara. Elena felt tears streaming down her face as she listened to the alien commander's words. Commander HFY, we did what any civilized species should do. We heard someone calling for help, and we answered. Your people would have done the same for us. But the victory at Aquatica was only the beginning. During the reconstruction efforts, Elena learned that the Ravager Collective was far larger than anyone had imagined. HFY shared intelligence gathered during their century-long struggle, revealing that the Ravagers had conquered dozens of star systems and enslaved or destroyed hundreds of species. Aquatica had simply been one stop on a conquest that spanned much of the galaxy. The Ravagers follow a pattern, HFY explained during one of their daily briefings. They identify civilizations that have resources they want, then systematically harvest those resources while eliminating any resistance. They have been doing this for thousands of years, growing stronger with each conquest. We believe they are preparing for something even larger, a final expansion that will consume the remaining free worlds of the galaxy. Captain Torres, who had remained in the system to oversee the reconstruction efforts, realized that humanity had inadvertently involved itself in a galactic conflict of enormous proportions. Elena, we need to contact Earth immediately. The Defense Council needs to know what we're really up against here. The message Elena sent back to Earth was both a victory report and a warning. Humanity had successfully completed its first interstellar rescue mission, but in doing so, they had revealed themselves to an enemy that viewed all organic life as either a resource to be harvested or an obstacle to be eliminated. The Ravager Collective now knew that humans existed, and that they were willing to interfere with Ravager operations to protect other species. The response from Earth came 3 months later, carried by a massive reinforcement fleet led by Admiral Mitchell herself. The Admiral's message was simple but profound. If the Ravagers want a fight with humanity, they'll get one. But first, we're going to make sure they regret ever threatening innocent life in this galaxy. Elena found herself at the center of what became known as the Galactic Liberation War. Her linguistic skills and her relationship with the Thylaurians made her invaluable as humanity began reaching out to other species that had survived Ravager attacks. One by one, civilizations that had been hiding in the dark corners of the galaxy began to emerge, drawn by stories of the humans who had traveled across interstellar distances to answer a call for help. The Zephyrians were next, a species of energy, beings who had been enslaved in Ravager power plants for centuries. Then came the Karathi, insectoid creatures whose hive minds had been partially destroyed by Ravager neural suppression technology. Each species brought their own unique abilities and knowledge to what was becoming the largest military alliance in galactic history. Helena established communication protocols with each new ally, her expertise growing as she learned to bridge not just language barriers, but completely different ways of thinking and perceiving reality. She discovered that the concept of voluntary sacrifice for strangers was not universal among galactic civilizations. Many species found humanity's willingness to risk everything for the Thylaurians to be incomprehensible, even as they benefited from the alliance that sacrifice had created. The war against the Ravager Collective lasted 5 years and spanned dozens of star systems. Elena served as the primary coordinator for Allied communications, her voice becoming familiar to species across the galaxy as she translated battle plans, coordinated supply lines, and maintained the unity that held the diverse alliance together. Final battle took place at the Ravager Primary Construction Facility, a massive complex built around a dying star that the Collective had been using to power their war machine for millennia. Elena stood on the bridge of the UE's horizon as hundreds of ships from dozens of species converged on the enemy stronghold. Humans fought alongside Thylaurians. Zephyrians provided energy support for Karathi assault drones, and species that had never known each other's existence worked together with precision that surprised even their own commanders. When the Ravager Collective finally fell, Helena was there to broadcast the victory to every allied world simultaneously. Her message was simple, but carried the weight of 5 years of struggle. The galaxy is free. The Ravagers are defeated. We did this together. The peace that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. The various species that had fought together against the Ravagers chose to maintain their alliance, forming the Galactic Cooperative Council with Earth as one of its founding members. Elena became the Council's first director of interspecies communication, a position that required her to facilitate cooperation between civilizations that span multiple dimensions of existence. Years later, Elena often returned to Aquatica to visit her friend HFY, who had become the Thylaurian representative to the Galactic Council. They would swim together in the restored oceans of his homeworld, watching the graceful spires of rebuilt cities rise from the waves like songs made manifest in crystal and living coral. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't detected our message? HFY asked during one of these visits, his bioluminescent skin casting soft patterns of light in the clear water. Elena floated beside him, watching schools of exotic fish that had been thought extinct swim past there. Observation dome. I think about it sometimes, she admitted. But I also think about all the good that came from hearing it. Not just saving your people, but everything that followed. The alliance, the peace, the knowledge we've all shared. Sometimes I think the universe has a way of putting the right people in the right place at exactly the right moment. Zephyr's eyes glowed with what Elena had learned to recognize as Thylorian amusement. Perhaps, or perhaps compassion, is simply a fundamental force of the universe, like gravity or electromagnetism. When beings choose to help each other despite the cost, they create ripples that spread far beyond their original intentions. Elena nodded, thinking about the message that had started it all. A simple plea for help, sent across the galaxy by a desperate people who had no way of knowing if anyone would hear them or care enough to respond. That message had changed everything, not just for the Thylorians or for humanity, but for every species in the galaxy that now lived free from the threat of conquest and extinction. As she watched the alien sunset paint Aquatica's restored skies in shades of purple and gold, Elena realized that her old job at monitoring station Omega-7 had been about more than just listening for signals from space. It had been about being ready to hear when someone needed help and being willing to answer. When that help was needed most, the stars still whispered their secrets, but now they spoke in the voices of friends. Asterisk.